Sheena Murray Contemporary Practice Review. There were two options on this course, exploring materials or printed textiles, and I chose to do printed textiles. The course consisted of 3 parts, 2 projects, 1 guided, 1 independent, and a written essay. For the essay, I chose the title Art is Never Finished, Only Abandoned. For project 1, I chose a coastal theme because I thought this would work really well upon the theme of abandonment, because of course seashells and pebbles and sea glass and other detritus are all abandoned on the shore. My first visit to the coast, I was quite pleased to collect seashells and interesting looking stones, but then suddenly my feet became entangled in some seaweed, and as I pulled it all apart, a small piece came off in my hand, and there it is. And I didn't know then that this little piece of seaweed was going to inspire both projects for this course. And by strange coincidence, in my research, I came across a textile artist called Jasmine Leamington, and like me, she was on the beach and her feet became entangled in seaweed, but she looked at it and she thought, actually, I've never seen such beautiful colours of seaweed, and it's really interesting. She was studying at the university in Edinburgh, and she used seaweed to make sequins, cutting small discs of them and embellishing her designs. She became so interested in seaweed that she started to work with a company who were using sea cell, which is a mixture of eucalyptus and seaweed cellulose to make fibres. And in my printing, I could often see the DNA of the seaweed. It's like hair, you can see the fibres in it. So it was a really interesting coincidence, and also to know that seaweed is now being used in actual textile fabric. Another coincidence was that I decided I would like to do some monoprints, and I often use the studio of a local artist and printmaker, Jackie. And at the studio, she was actually working on some pebble prints, and obviously that's what I'd gone along to do, was some pebble prints and seashells and seaweed. And she showed me a new technique, which is using foil tape that electricians use to make monoprints, and it's a really effective technique, and you can see the fantastic textures on the pebbles and shells. And she also showed me how to use this tape to make a collograph of my seaweed, a little piece of seaweed, and it looks lovely. This is printed on cardi paper, and it's like a really lovely old-fashioned wallpaper. This was my first basic little print of my seaweed, and my favourite print of all out of everything I've done for this course. I printed the seaweed onto a print from an old back of an old notebook. Another coincidence was that for part 2 we had to choose an artefact for our independent project, and I'd been to various museums locally in London, in Greece, and I just couldn't choose the right artefact. One day I'd come out of the hospital, it was raining, I had time to kill waiting for my bus, so I popped into the Somerset Museum and I came across the most perfect artefact. It was a beautiful book of pressed seaweed by Isabella Gifford, who was a local marine biologist, so she had collected her samples from Somerset. And I was so excited to see this. I asked if I could have a look at the books, and I had to wait 3 months for this, but it was totally worth it because all of the seaweed she collected 125 years ago was just so colourful. In fact, it looked more like prints than pressings. And so I decided to give seaweed pressing a try, and you can see how delicate it is. This is some lava weed and it's turned a beautiful shade of purple. It's incredibly delicate. And funny enough, in my research, as well as Isabella using her pressed seaweed, I came across a lady called Svea Lipkin, and her father was a marine biologist and he donated all his samples to Tel Aviv University. When he died, she came across a box of seaweed samples he'd made as a student. They were just tiny little cards with seaweed on the front, and on the back the place and date and name of the seaweed. she was so inspired by this, but because they were, as you can see from my sample, so fragile and the colours had faded, so she digitally manipulated them to make vibrant colours, and she then printed them onto fabric, used machine stitch and hand stitch to make textiles. And this is a little similar to what I was doing, in the fact I was using my seaweed prints to digitally manipulate them to make designs, predominantly designs for interiors, because that's where I felt that my designs work best. However, my tutor felt that they would work with any kind of surface. So looking at surface pattern design, I then explored using my designs for products and for ceramics, gift wrap, cards, and I also had some samples printed on fabric. Some work better than others. This was my original seaweed drawing. This is some beautiful Duchess satin. This works really well. It's a very sheer voile. I love this. This is on silk and it goes so well with the delicate pattern. My favourite of all though is this gorgeous luxurious silk, and this was from a chopped up piece of seaweed. Not all fabrics worked well. This was horrible. The design is lovely, but this is supposedly upholstery fabric, but it feels like felt. It's horrible. However, if you would like to look at my creative work, there's a whole range of samples there, and I really hope that you will enjoy looking at them. Thank you.